Intentional or a misjudgment? That is the question that has had the entire NASCAR world divided since Sunday afternoon at Martinsville Speedway. Bubba Wallace hit Carson Hocevar once, then hit him again, then drove straight through him, triggering an 11-car pileup that ended his own race and wiped out nearly everything he had built in the 2026 season. Wallace says he misjudged. His own crew chief says there is no excuse, and NASCAR insiders cannot agree on whether this was frustration boiling over or simply the most expensive mistake of the season so far. By the end of this video, you will have every fact, every quote, and every angle, and you can decide for yourself. Coming into Martinsville, Bubba Wallace had been one of the most consistent drivers in the entire 2026 NASCAR Cup Series. Through the first 5 races of the season, he had finished inside the top 11 in every single race, a record no other driver in the field could match. He was sitting 3rd in the point standings, and 23XY's Racing looked like a legitimate championship operation alongside teammate Tyler Reddick, who held the top spot in points. But here's the thing about consistency in NASCAR. It can mask vulnerability. Wallace had not recorded a single top 5 finish through those 5 races. He was racking up solid, respectable results, but no dominant performance, no signature moment. He was leading the series in stage points, which showed his pace was real, but a lack of true standout finishes meant his position near the top of the standings was always going to be fragile the moment things went sideways. And at Martinsville Speedway, things went very sideways. Martinsville is a 0.526 mile short track, the shortest on the entire Cup Series schedule. It is a place where bumpers make decisions, tempers run short, and one bad moment can cost you everything. The Cook Out 400 was deep into its final stage, the field was running hard, and the tension inside every cockpit was at its absolute peak heading into lap 324. Earlier in the race, on a restart, Carson Hocevar made an aggressive move, going 3 wide into turn 1. It was not illegal, it was not a penalty, but it was a bold call on a track where 3 wide rarely ends cleanly, and Bubba Wallace was one of the drivers who paid for it with track position. Wallace lost ground, fell back in the running order, and was visibly frustrated. Then came lap 324. On the next restart, Wallace was directly behind Hocevar entering turn 3. He gave the number 77 Spire Motorsports Chevrolet an initial shove, then a second hit, then instead of backing out, he drove straight through him. Hocevar's car went spinning. The drivers behind had nowhere to go. An 11-car pileup erupted almost instantly across the front stretch, collecting car after car in a chain reaction that took out a massive portion of the Cup Series field, including 23XY Racing teammate Riley Herbst. Wallace's own car was so badly damaged that he had no choice but to park it in the garage. He was done for the day. P36, one single championship point. Hocevar, remarkably, was able to continue after repairs and cross the line in 17th place. After climbing out of his wrecked car, Wallace addressed the incident in a post-race interview with Jamie Little on Fox Sports. He did not deny the contact, he contested the intent. "I misjudged," Wallace said. "I didn't appreciate the 3 wide into turn 1, fine, but I misjudged the center of the corner and didn't mean to turn him." He acknowledged the earlier frustration with Hocevar's 3 wide move, but he stopped short of calling it retaliation, insisting the contact was a misjudgment rather than a deliberate takeout. Whether the NASCAR garage accepted that explanation, however, is a very different story. The most damning reaction came from inside Wallace's own team. Freddie Kraft, Wallace's crew chief at 23XY Racing, did not sugarcoat a single word on the Door Bumper Clear podcast. "There's not really any sugarcoating about it. I gotta take Bubba for his word. He said he misjudged, and if he misjudged, it was a really bad misjudgment, and it hurts," Kraft said. "We went from 3rd in points to now we're tied for 8th with 5 other guys. Essentially, we're 11th in points, and it can't happen." He went further. "You can't have those moments, and if you want to be a contender for the championship, or a contender to be top 5, top 7, 8 in points, whatever it is, that HT can't happen." Unfortunately, we ended our day yesterday self-inflicted. Denny Hamlin, on his Actions Detrimental podcast, offered context from a driver's perspective. Hamlin acknowledged that Hocevar's 3 wide move on the restart was aggressive, calling it a move that is not illegal, it's just a dub move, but made clear that Wallace's response went far beyond what the situation called for. According to Hamlin, Wallace's thinking in the moment was simply to knock Hocevar up the track, get him back, and keep racing. The problem was he kept going, and the result was a massive pileup. Kyle Petty, speaking on Inside the Race, introduced an angle that goes deeper than just the on-track incident. Petty pointed to the internal pressure Wallace carries racing alongside teammate Tyler Reddick, who had dominated the headlines at 23X1 racing all season long. Internally, you race your teammates. I don't give a rat's rear end what anybody says. You race your teammates. You want to be top of the heap, king of the hill in your own team, Petty said. And I think there's some frustration and some pent-up anger in that when you get into it. Petty also addressed Hocevar's reputation in the garage, a driver known for aggressive racing, but was direct about the verdict. Hocevar is an easy target right now. You can almost wreck Hocevar, and everybody says, well, that's just Hocevar. He had that one coming, but in this case, I don't think Hocevar had this coming, man. Seven-time champion Richard Petty was even more blunt on his Petty Race Recap podcast. When co-host Dale Inman described the incident as Wallace having kinda got into Hocevar, Petty immediately corrected him. Kinda got into him? He just drove on in there and knocked the door out of him. Kevin Harvick and Clint Bowyer both speculated there was retaliatory intent behind the move, even if Wallace would not admit it publicly. Steve Letarte took a more measured stance, suggesting Wallace may have simply over-applied the throttle in the heat of the moment. The debate among analysts was real, but on one point, nearly every voice agreed. Hocevar did nothing wrong. Even Kraft confirmed it directly. Hocevar did nothing wrong. He took us 3 wide into turn 1 and passed us clean. I don't think he did anything wrong. I think it was just a lapse in judgment for a moment. The numbers tell the full story of just how costly lap 324 turned out to be. Wallace entered the Cookout 400 sitting third in the Cup Series point standings. He left Martinsville in a 4-way tie for 8th, but due to the tiebreaker system, which compares best finishes, he ranked 11th. His best finish of 6th place at Phoenix Raceway lost out in the tiebreaker to Brad Keselowski's 2nd place at Darlington and Kyle Larson's 3rd place at Phoenix. Keselowski held the tiebreaker outright ahead of Larson, pushing Wallace to the bottom of the group. This was also Wallace's 2nd consecutive finish of 34th or worse. The race before Martinsville, at Darlington Raceway, he had been caught up in another driver's incident and could only recover to 34th place. Back-to-back disasters had turned a promising season into a genuine points emergency in the span of just 2 weekends. Wallace is still 48 points above the playoff cut line, so the situation is not critical yet. But what these past 2 weekends have exposed is a real structural weakness. Being consistent and being consistently good are 2 different things. Without a top-tier result to fall back on, one rough stretch of races is all it takes to fall from a championship contender to a driver fighting to hold his position. Kyle Petty's frustration theory is worth sitting with for a moment. Throughout the 2026 season, the conversation around 23X1's racing had been almost entirely about Tyler Reddick. Wallace had been delivering week after week, leading the series in stage points, finishing inside the top 11 every race. And the response from the outside world was consistently, oh yeah, and Bubba's having a decent year too. That kind of dynamic builds pressure, and at a short track, late in a race, when things are already not going the way you planned, that pressure has somewhere it wants to go. The Hocevar factor also matters here. Carson Hocevar has a well-known reputation in the NASCAR garage as an aggressive racer, a driver who has been involved in more than his share of incidents. Analysts pointed out that this reputation may have made him feel like a more justifiable target in Wallace's mind in that split second, but the facts on Sunday were clear. Hocevar's 3-wide move was legal, it was clean, and it did not merit what followed. What this incident does to Wallace's relationships inside the garage going forward is a legitimate question. Drivers remember moments like this. The number 23 car will be watched closely in the races ahead. The NASCAR Cup Series has the Easter weekend off before returning to action at Bristol Motor Speedway on Sunday, April 12th for the Food City 500, broadcast live on Fox Sports 1 at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Bristol is another short track, the same type of environment where Sunday's incident unfolded. Wallace will need to bring a clean, composed race with 0 drama. Freddie Kraft has already drawn the line in public. The team knows what is at stake. One important data point for the Bristol preview, Kyle Larson led 411 of 500 laps at Bristol in April 2025. a level of dominance that will make him the driver to beat once again. Wallace cannot afford another DNF or a low points finish on a track where Larson has shown he can simply run away from the field. The championship window is still open for Bubba Wallace and 23XY Racing, but it is closing faster than anyone inside that organization expected just 2 weeks ago. The next question is simple. Does Wallace respond at Bristol with the clean, disciplined run his crew chief is demanding, or does the frustration follow him there too?